uneven snow melts on your roof, and now you're getting ice dams. So raccoons can cause ice dams. We're going to go to Plague 9. This is called interior environmental contamination. And this list is getting larger and larger by the day. So we're probably just going to hit a few of these. Okay, for example, we'll start off with today. You know, we used to have real wood, and they cut down all the 100-year-old trees, and now they got young trees, and now what they're doing is they're chopping it up, cooking it, and adding chemicals to it, and we call it wood. And so now you've got particle boards and press wood. And what happens is when you build these in homes, this stuff outgasses, and some people have chemical sensitivities to the urea formaldehyde and phenyl formaldehyde. Uranium, okay, a lot of radon issues in home. This is kind of a new problem. We don't hear a lot about it, but everyone's got granite countertops. But granite comes from the ground, and a lot of granite is radioactive and can be producing radon. And we do get called once in a while to come and test for radon.
Well, my feeling on this is that if this granite had a lot of uranium in it, the government would be mining it. But we do find not super elevated levels, but we do find some elevated levels above the granite.
This new one now is Chinese drywall, and it comes with an odor. Now, we don't see a lot of it up in the Ohio area. There's a lot of it down south in Florida, and this Chinese drywall actually is causing corrosion of electrical systems and causing fires and all kind of new problems. So it does emit an odor, and there are homes with Chinese drywall. Dust. There's a lot of types of dust that can be problems, and a lot of people today are becoming sensitized to chemicals, to dust, to all kind of things. And this particular case was actually a case we did in New York City. We had a client buy a house. Actually, it was a condominium right in front of the 9/11 building, or the towers that came down. It was a $10 million condo, and they paid us a lot of money and asked us to test the house to see if it has anything that's bad. So we did forensic dust testing, and interestingly enough, we did find dust in the back hallways, and we had it tested, and it was identical to the DNA dust with all the asbestos and paint and silica that existed during the 9/11. So this was the 9/11 cloud. 5 years later, after the building was cleaned multiple times, still exists in the home. We have meth labs. A lot of times you go to homes, you see funny stains, you see corrosion, and what happens is the meth lab gets busted. The landlord loses his house, he sells it, the next guy buys a house, he paints it, and he never checked, to see if there's any contaminants in the house. A lot of times the ductwork is contaminated, and you still have these chemicals throughout the house. So you need to identify and research the house and make sure it wasn't some type of methamphetamine laboratory.
There's underground buried oil tanks. These can become a problem. One, they could have oil inside of them, and you're going to have to get rid of the tanks. Sometimes the tanks were installed prior to the house being constructed. You have to cut them out. Other times you have just the areas where the oil was filled into the house, and they've removed the tanks on the inside. And we've had a couple of situations in Northeast Ohio where the oil man came, delivered the oil. There wasn't an oil tank inside the house, and he filled up the house with oil. Also, it can be a liability if you have a buried oil tank on the property, because many times banks do not want to put a mortgage on a house where you have a buried oil tank.
And sometimes these oil tanks are under concrete slabs, under concrete porches, and so abatement of these can be quite expensive. Sewer problems, well, everybody knows about sewer problems. You have a tree in front of your house, you snake the drains, that's fine. You don't snake the drains, your basement floods, okay? And this particular house was funny because this basement flooded so many times that the homeowner was tired of paying $200. She went on Craigslist, bought this snake for $200, and just left it in the sewer. And then, like, every time it started to back up, she'd just turn it on, it would snake it. And she never even pulled the snake out. She'd just, like, move it around. But this is an expensive ordeal because you're going to have to dig up their front property. Smokers. Smoking in homes kind of isn't something done anymore, but it's still done, and these tars and nicotines will stay in the house, And a lot of times people paint over this stuff. And then the minute the humidity goes high, it starts to bleed, and your walls the stuff starts coming out of your walls. So any smoker house, you have to clean all the tar nicotine off the walls prior to painting. Otherwise, it's going to bleed through someday. UFI, urea formaldehyde insulation. At one time, it was considered a great insulation because they would blow it into the wall. But the early UFIs, the way they were mixed, would outgas if you mixed it improperly, and then it would outgas formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen. There was a lot of banks that would never permit mortgages on homes with UFI. And so today, most of the homes that have this UFI, it is outgassed. It is probably not a problem. However, it is still a dust problem and still an indoor air problem. And this is where you'll see UFI. You'll see it in attics. A lot of times you'll get lucky and you'll see it in the wall cavities when you drill a hole, or sometimes in the basement, or when you drill in a fan or a light fixture, it may come out of the walls. EMFs, high tension wires, radio towers, they put out frequencies, and I'm not sure I want to live underneath one of these towers. I know I've tried.
When you live under here, you hear a buzzing noise. It's a loud buzzing noise.
You can hear it, sure. Another thing you could do, it's kind of fun at night, take a fluorescent light, one of those 4-footers, and go underneath these. They light up on their own. And so, I'm not sure it is a good thing to be living with or underneath.
Okay, so another environmental hazard within the house is mold. On the left, we've got flesh-eating mold. So we got a lot of areas in the house that has mold. And again, many of the inspectors' contract says they don't deal with mold, they don't identify mold. But if I see something in the house that looks like mold, I'm going to inform my client and try to give them an idea of how to deal with it, okay? And basically, it'll come down to, if you have moisture in your house, over-humidification, poor moisture barriers, you're going to end up with mold. So you want to find out why the mold, or why and how the mold is being formed.
Lead paint, pre-1978 homes have lead, and a lot of these wood windows with friction and impact surfaces and chewable surfaces and multiple surfaces. Kids under age of 6 can be poisoned by this. So, you want to look around the property, look at the drip lines, and make sure that there's no peeling paint, make sure there's no exposed dirt. But bottom line, lead paint is a problem. And of course, lead paint, kids grow up. Asbestos, well, that was a problem with vermiculite. W.C. Grace mined it. Most people in the mine are dead. Most people that live in Libby, where it came from, have all types of lung problems or cancer problems. And all towns leaving it, the railroad tracks leaving the areas to the towns they stopped in, all have problems. And so they're estimating that 33 million homes still have this stuff in America and Canada. And there's nothing you could do about this other than remove it, and it can cost $10,000 to $20,000 to remove. Radon gas comes from the ground. If you have negative pressures, you'll have more radon. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in America, and they say you should test for radon. And if you have radon, you can install a
radon mitigation system,
which is basically a subslab depressurization system.
Okay, the final plague 10, and we're going to talk about the human element. The human element, that is, people who are living inside the home and how they cause defects to the home.
And, just the human element in general. So, for example, here's a human element where the cities do not permit you to tear down barns. So here you bought a house, you got this barn, it's dilapidated, but you're not allowed to tear it down. It has to fall down naturally. And we have several states that don't permit that, or your neighbor's got this problem. Another human element could very well be a crazy neighbor. So you got these crazy neighbors that put up decorations that the whole city looks at, and now you got the news media trampling your front yard. And so crazy neighbors playing loud music, parties, all kind of stuff can also be part of this element. Then we have what's called abandonment. You buy a house and across the street's another property that's totally been abandoned, and now it's just sitting there. And now you have to look at that, and that's part of your landscape. Then I'm going to call this abandoned nuisance. These are areas that people like to visit. Today you have a whole new group of people called urban explorers, and they like to go to places. Now, let's say you had this amusement park that's been abandoned for 30 years in your backyard. Well, every day you're going to see people park in front of your house, crawling over your fence to go get their pictures to make their YouTube videos. So, and this is the same for factories and all these abandoned buildings that we have all over our country. Then we have the shoddy work, Mr. Contractor Fix-It guy, okay? And we have a lot of this. This is a contractor that did some very shoddy work.
Okay, so this contractor was caught doing the shoddy work. These are photos that Marco got. The guy's putting on a new roof, and he has some rolled roofing that he kind of just pulled up as he was putting the shingles down, trying to give the appearance that he was using rolled roofing. And here he's saving $100 on, a number 15-pound felt. And of course, you know what happened after he left the roof leak like a sieve.
I filmed this guy. He used that one 8-foot piece of rolled roofing for the entire roof. And he only had that so in case a specter drove by, he'd look out the window and he would see that he was using it. Window leaks. Here's a contractor. He's ready to put in a window, and he cuts the hole, and he's ready to put in the glass. He's getting ready to put in a window. And now there's men talking, oh man, who put this window in? What did you guys do? Who did this? Oops. So what they're going to do with this, we know what they're going to do with this. They're going to fill it with insulation and cover it with wood trim. And there's our homeowner. They're trying to tell the homeowner, don't even worry about this. We're going to fix that. And she's like, got her hands in her pocket like, And she, you know what she's thinking, that these guys are full of it. Okay, then we have homeowners who abandoned their homes. And here's one where they left their home 13 years ago, and mold and bacteria and wildlife took over. Think of all the neighbors that had lived next to this house for 13 years. They finally tore the house down. It was the 17th year of being vacant.
Yep.
17 years. Here we got ghost stains, ruined walls. I don't think there's a problem, but what you see in the upper picture is a thermal image of the joists in the wall. These are thermal bridges where they have a lower R value, and you can see how cold it is. Well, when you burn jar candles, as a jar candle burns down, the wick gets lower, you don't have enough oxygen, so now you're burning carbon dioxide. And when you burn carbon dioxide, you have incomplete combustion, and when you have incomplete combustion, you generate carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and soot. And as the soot floats around, it moves pretty quickly. It's very light, and through Brownian motion, it moves quickly, but the minute it hits a colder place, it slows down and plates out and impacts, and that's why you have these lines. It also happens with carpets, and you can see here where the cold air return was underneath the carpet, and the cold air return was causing negative pressure sucking, and it was basically filtering the soot out of the air caused by the jar candles. Then golf courses. If you buy a house on a golf course, why don't you go look at the windows and see how many have been replaced? Go look at the siding, and then read your rules and regulations to see who's responsible. Because you can bet your life that golfer ain't hanging around to pay for your window that he just broke. And then if you live in other areas where a lot of people walk around with AKs, well, you could have bullet damage. Okay, and who's going to pay for that? Ghosts? Well, I don't know. If somebody dies in a house, I guess you got to tell the people somebody died, and some people believe in ghosts. By the way, that picture here that you're looking at is up in Cleveland, also known as the Haunted Franklin Mansion. I've yet to see a real ghost anywhere in my life. Dead people, you can't rent the house. It's hard to rent it. I knew somebody that owned the home of the Lundgrens, and it was a farmhouse, and that farmhouse stood for 10 years after his execution, and now they finally tore it down. Bad tenants, well, we all know about bad tenants. Crackheads, well, the crackheads usually steal the plumbing before you can kick them out.
According to the American Pet Association, we got over 130 million animals living with people in the United States, and actually I think that's almost doubled since the last time we did this presentation. Cat spraying. Yeah, male cats, they like to mark their territory by spraying. It's a real problem, particularly if people try to hide it. We have a case study here, and this is, of course, is not the cat that was responsible. We had a client that lived in a house. She passed away. She had many cats. Her brother came up, painted the house, painted over everything. Poor girl bought the house. Within 3 months, the whole house was smelling. It had stains coming out, and it became a real problem. Getting rid of pet odors and pet stains is a very, very difficult thing. If you have heavy cat spraying, in many instances, the only thing you can do is tear out the carpet, tear out the walls, tear out the drywall, because the urine will stay in the wood.
So we went to this home, and we basically, all the metal closet hinges were rusting, and this is a brand new carpet. And then we found odors in the corners, and also the drywall was all patched, painted, and it was like oozing black, brown colored spots coming out of it, and that was from the cat spraying and urine. We removed the carpets and found out that they painted the floors. They replaced the tack stripping, and even the tack stripping tacks were starting to corrode, from the urine that was in this home. Some areas they added double base molding, and you can see the rippling effect. Here they had to use caulking. Other locations they painted it, and they added more carpet tacks. Basically, we analyzed it. We found out later that she had 13 cats that roamed the house. She died because she just left, and they found her somewhere. Well, the 13 cats roamed the house for 2 weeks, and it got so bad, the odors, that the neighbors called the police and the Humane Society. They broke into the house, and they found a couple dead cats in closets, and the other cats they took to the shelters. Basically, the brother tried to sanitize the house after, just as Jim mentioned it, and he painted everything. He did all these repairs, plus he plugged in a bunch of air fresheners. The young girl that bought this house will now have to spend $50,000 to properly abate this home of all the damages. All the drywall's going to have to come down. Probably the carpets will have to be removed. The tack board's going to have to be removed. And then it'll all have to be sanitized. It's possible that some of the studs in the walls will also have to be sanitized and encapsulated. The end.